It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I will be your host this morning. We're going to cover a number of different areas and topics this morning, which are and should be very disturbing to a lot of Americans. If you're catching us live on our website, that's great news. I see a ton of you folks out there. Man, the Midwest is just crammed. Out on the east, I see Gainesville. I think that's Maryland. I see Fort Wayne, Indiana. I see Muncie. I see, Bowling Green, Kentucky, Clarksville. Texas is out there. I see Tulsa, Oklahoma out there. And I see a bunch of folks out there on the West Coast and the upper Midwest. I see Chicago out there. Congratulations and thank you for joining with us this morning. We try to change the paradigm of what's happening in our country on a daily basis. And as a result of that, we broadcast on Patriot FB. Patriot FB Radio, by the way, is now live. I encourage you strongly to go to see patriotfbradio.com. That's an offshoot from patriotfb.com, which is a Facebook-like type website for patriots. And Patriot Radio is you don't have to be a member or anything. You can just listen anytime you like. My program goes on there this morning at 8 o'clock live. And then after I go on, Tom Lacavara goes on. And then after that, J.J. McCartney. And there are other hosts that are being brought on as we speak. It's an outstanding opportunity for you to get talk radio in a way that you're not going to get on the national mainstream channels. Because the guys out there like Rush and the guys out there like Glenn Beck and the guys out there, listen, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but I got to tell you, folks, it's way past time for Americans to be awakened by real, honest-to-goodness discussion and analysis of what's happening around us with no PC nonsense associated to it. I don't want to talk about, Beyonce and her husband and the sister having a kicking fight in the elevator. That kind of thing is just pure distraction. And all of that is really meant to keep those who are, sleeping at the wheel, so to speak, in a catatonic state. We are in dire trouble as a nation, economically, socially, fiscally. We are in trouble societally. We are in trouble religiously. We are in trouble militarily. We are in trouble in every aspect, every element of the parts that make up this country. And we're in trouble in every one of them. There's not one area that you can point to that things are moving along well. Find me one. Anyone. I'll take any. There isn't one. The churches have become apostate 501c3 bowing and scraping bootlickers. That's the truth. So you can drop religion out of the game. Our military is in a shambles. They are being systematically destroyed from the inside, fiscally, while at the same point in time, anyone left in there is either an Obama-ite or they've been removed summarily. Our major generals and anyone who fought against or fights against this administration and what they're seeking to do in stripping the United States down to the absolute bare essentials has already been removed, ladies and gentlemen. Anyone who was a whistleblower, gone. We have our society being monitored and surveilled in every aspect of every area of our lives. Doesn't make any difference whether it's you're traveling down the road in your vehicle. Makes no difference whether you're out in public walking the streets, whether you walk into a store, whether you are speaking on the street, whether you are writing an email to someone, whether you're making a telephone call, no matter what you're doing, whether you're sitting there in front of your laptop, they're flipping on the camera and they're monitoring you. Ladies and gentlemen, that is so outside. Look, if I told you 10 years ago that the NSA was monitoring every communication of every individual in America, you would have said, and I could prove it, you would have said, that's outrageous, unbelievable. But you see, you have been slowly indoctrinated into the principle that it's all okay because it's being done to keep you safe. Like law enforcement being armed to the teeth by Department of Homeland Security and military. It's not okay. It's not okay. And you better stop thinking it is. The pioneer and the creator of facial recognition has come out warning of the exploitation of it. With all due respect, folks, that is the theory of unintended consequences playing out in real time. I mean, it's insane. The manner in which our country is coming apart. I mean, economically, fiscally, we are so far upside down. I'm not sure that anyone, I got to ask you this question. Why is it that politicians everywhere, both state and federal, are completely ignoring the reality of where we are economically? I mean, we're clearly at a point where we're over bankrupt. We are well over the 100% of GDP mark, which is the death knell of any society. Well over it. We have, and that's the debt that's apparent. That's not even the debt that we're talking about that nobody is talking about, like the $120 trillion that we have as unfunded liabilities. This is for all the pensions of all these traders who are passing mountains of law. But we're also not talking about $200 trillion that we are on the hook for as a nation for all of this Wall Street gambling that's going on. I mean, these high rollers in $3,000 suits wearing $900 pairs of shoes, they're gambling on your money. They stand nothing to lose. It's like monopoly money. It's like downloading an application onto your tablet or your phone or your computer that allows you to play blackjack. I mean, you don't care how much you gamble because there's no consequence if you really lose. It's not real money. It's the same game for them. 200 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, 120 trillion plus 17 trillion alone exceeds the asset value of the planet Earth. End of argument. And that's just our debt. We're not talking about European Union. We're not talking about Asia. We're not talking about South America. We're not talking... Are you getting the picture here? Economically, we're done. We're finished. At this point, I'll tell you why no one is talking about what's going on economically. Because they know it's over and they don't care. Hello? That's the truth. Everything else that you hear is propaganda and lies. They know we're done. They know we're finished. They know there is no hope of paying this back. And they don't care. Because they've already been informed. Look, this is how it is. We're not going to be able to reduce this. At some point, we're going to have an economic collapse that's going to wipe it all out. So stop worrying about it. Keep spending. That's the reality. And if you don't think that that's what they're talking about behind closed doors, if you don't think that's the hub of conversation at the water cooler in Washington, D.C., you're blind, you're deaf, and you're fooling yourself. That's the truth. You see, politicians have already been prepared for. They've been taken care of. The question is, what's in it for you? And the answer is absolutely nothing. What's in it for you is the risk of enslavement when this thing comes apart. Because they're going to use that, as government always does, especially of late. If you're not smelling Hegelian dialectic around you everywhere, cause a problem, come up with a solution, or wait until it festers and becomes a boil and then it becomes infected. Offer the solution. The solution invariably offers or provides for the denigration and the limitation of your rights. That's the way it works. This is an old game. It's been going on since as long as man's been alive. Create a problem, offer the solution, And 9 times out of 10, the solution doesn't even wait for the problem to occur. They create a solution that doesn't have a problem. And then they ram it through. The VA scandal. It's widening. Vets are dying. Bureaucrats are talking. That's going to be the topic of our conversation in this first segment. Second segment, Harry Reid. Here's Harry Reid. He's out there trying to put a constitutional amendment together to limit the First Amendment. Now, folks, I got to tell you something. I just want you to look at this in the perspective that the media won't give you. We have been trying to get constitutional amendments passed for decades. Constitutional amendments passed that would do things like limit the terms of these traitors in Congress, shrink the federal government in size and scope, get a balanced budget amendment, just basic stuff that makes common sense. We can't do it. We can't even get the conversation started. Dirty Harry decides to limit free speech, and bam, he's got a hearing within 30 days. Unbelievable. Convention of States, excuse me. The concept of a limited constitutional modification amendment system. That's been tried over and over and over and over and over. You know why it's never been successful? Because the minute they get close, Congress begins to institute those amendments themselves or shove some nonsensical BS reform through that, for all intents and purposes, effectively states that, and they write it themselves because they don't dare allow non-political entities to write a constitutional amendment. There's no loopholes in it for them then. Don't you get it? They can't have you writing a constitutional amendment because it would be ironclad. But Harry, he can write a constitutional amendment that gives him and his party and his pals all the violations and all the loopholes and all the wiggle room they want. D-Day, June 3rd, is the hearing on free speech. He wants to limit your ability to have free speech in elections. He wants government to decide who can donate to what party and when and how and under what circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, that's an open act of treason. Immigration, a national emergency. A national emergency. This is an invasion without a media blast. That's what it is. It's an invasion without weapons. It's an invasion nonetheless. 60,000 children have been caught crossing the border without any parental assistance just since the beginning of the year. You know what they estimated that the total was going to be for the year 2014? 60,000. We've already reached it, and we're only into May. You know why? Dreamers Act. The Dreamers Act has allowed the United States border to be as transparent and as invisible to these people. And this is an article in the New York Times, which is, probably one of the chief apologists for this administration, the immigration issue in specificity, and how this administration has been working on these issues. It's gotten so bad the Department of Health and Human Services has declared an emergency. DHS has declared an emergency. Let me put it to you this way. In 2011, only 4,000 crossed the border, unaccompanied children. Last year, it was 21,000. This year, they expected it to be 60,000, and we've already hit the number. Hello? We're being invaded by children. You know why? Because we can't send them back. Who do we send them back to? I got to tell you, our fourth topic, the police state. Government means to enslave you, and we're going to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. All right, so let's jump onto our first topic, because where we are here is so outside the scope of anything that we can explain or justify. Let's talk about the first issue, which is vets. You know, the veterans, where they are in Phoenix, they're scared. And there's an article I posted up on our Facebook page this morning about the vets and how they are being in Phoenix especially, but that this thing is exploding all over the nation. In military.com, there's an article out there this morning about how vets in Phoenix are angry and they're sick and they're scared. But the bureaucrats are going to sit around and they're going to hold an investigation. They're going to have a hearing. Hey, let me tell you something. This is an emergency situation, exigent danger. Vets need care now. I want to see someone who's got brass in Congress stand up and say, for the next 180 days, any vet can go to any hospital they can get to. End of argument, end of discussion. We'll sort out the details later. Isn't that what government always tells us? Don't worry, we'll find out what we got to do to correct the problem later. Right now, let's just take care of the emergency. Unfortunately, when they say it, it always includes the denigration or the elimination of your personal or individual or national or human rights. In this case, I'm saying let's turn the tables on them and use their own language against them. This is a national emergency. For the next 180 days, all veterans should be able to go to any clinic they can, show their VA card, and get service. That's it. Problem solved, or at least immediately. Does it cover the fact that we've got bureaucrats running these systems that are killing our fellow countrymen? No. Should they be charged with manslaughter, attempted murder, or some other charge? Yes. But that's not what we need to focus on right now. Right now, we need to focus on men and women who are dying. We need to focus on Americans who are dying. And, this is so out of control, folks. Here, you've got Bradley Manning. The VA goes and puts a special program into place to change him from a man into a woman and cut off his little wiener and give him a vagina. And we've got Americans who are bleeding out their rectum with cancer, and they can't get a dagnab colonoscopy. What kind of insanity is that? I don't want to see a fast-track hearing. I want to see a fast-track freeze of the rules. I want to see 100 million Americans who say, that's it. Today, you're going to waive the rules. Today, any vet can go to any hospital. And if you don't do it, we will storm your Capitol, we will remove you in handcuffs, and that will be the end of it. Then we'll do what you can't and are unwilling to do. Anything less than that, ladies and gentlemen, is a crime against humanity. Not just against vets. A crime against humanity. 41 dead in one facility. How many dead in others? The numbers are starting to come out. The whistleblowers are coming out. This isn't a scandal. This is a crime. And it's time we treated it as such. When the crime of a Boston bombing occurred, all the rules were thrown out the window. Your Fourth Amendment rights had no priority. They could kick your door in and hold you and your family at gunpoint and kick you out into the street. They seized communications and locked down your cell phones because it was an exigent case. Well, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We've got an exigent case, not of one kid running around who the damn government knew about all along. We've got cases of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Americans who are dying at the hands of bureaucrats. And it's time you got pissed. Not just pissed and, shout at your television. Not just pissed and remark or comment to your wife or your husband. It's time that you got pissed and you made it clear. You see, and the vet issue is only one aspect of this. But if you're not willing to hold a national strike to shut this whole beast down and starve it to death, then you are not a patriot. End of argument. You know why the thing in Washington didn't work with the Operation American Spring, and it's not going to work? I'll tell you why. One, people aren't willing to get up and leave their couch. Number two, everybody was afraid to go because the people in charge of OAS are questionable. And God only knows that that's obvious. Third, the media is not going to cover it no matter what. And fourth, you're not doing anything to hurt them. There's no teeth in your bite. You're gumming them to death. Even if it was successful and 1 million people showed up, unless you're prepared to remove these people by force, you're wasting your time. And to remove them by force is an open declaration of revolution. And since America doesn't have the brass to do that, then the only other thing that you can do is force their hand. And you know how you can do that? A national strike. Sit out, stand out, shut down, don't go to work, don't pay your taxes, don't pay your mortgage, don't pay your car bill, don't buy gasoline, don't buy food, just shut it down. And until you're willing to do that, America, they're going to continue to flail you, to beat you, to lash you, not with a cat of 9 tails, but with a cat of 90 tails. You've been indoctrinated, you've been drugged up, you've been shown all the propaganda, and you're now a willing and complacent, mind-controlled animal. You've been trained like a dog. You've been smacked on the nose with a newspaper, and now you'll do whatever they tell you to do. And those who aren't are threatened because they'll lose this or lose that. They'll lose their welfare check, their benefit, their VA clinic rights. You don't even have any VA clinic rights. What are you talking about? Hundreds of you are dying right now as we speak. How do you fear losing something you don't have? How do you fear losing something you don't own? You don't own your car. You don't own your house. Stop paying your taxes for a month and see what happens. See how fast they put it up on the auction block. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Please visit our website at americasvoicenow.org. Listen, we are way upside down financially. Thousands of dollars in the hole, which I have to cover every month. I'm asking you guys to help us. Those of you who listen on a routine basis, I can't tell you how dire the scenario is. I mean, it's a problem in the sense that I cover it every month. I'm out of funds. I can no longer continue to personally carry it. I need your help. Go to our website and hit the donation button. And instead of paying your cable provider this week, send me the $130. I'm giving you straight information. They're giving you Kim Kardashian's butt. We'll be back in just a minute. When we come back, we're going to hit our second topic. Every one of these is cause for exigent alarm. Harry Reid's going to kill the First Amendment, free speech, with a new committee hearing he's scheduled for June 3rd. That building should be covered in Americans standing on each other's shoulders to get at him. We'll be right back. Listener-supported radio, and I try not to mention finances on this program because I don't want anybody to think that I make a living at this or something else. I've never made a penny on this program. It doesn't cover any of my expenses. It costs me money. But I got to tell you, we're thousands of dollars in the hole, and I could really use your help. I've never made a penny at this program. I don't get paid. The money all goes to pay the bills, that any money that's donated, and then whatever I put out of my pocket all goes to pay the bills. I can assure you of one thing. I can't support indefinitely, and I've been supporting this program now for 3 years out of my pocket. There's never been a month where the expenses were met by donations, which means I've had to, pay the difference every time. And it's reaching a level where I can no longer continue to do that. I'm asking you to help us to continue to keep free speech and to continue to keep truth and integrity and honor and respect and non-political or non-PC speech on the air. I know people say, oh, you're just looking for ratings and all. Ratings, schmatings. What are you talking about? Wake up and smell the coffee. This program isn't rated. Rated by whom? Rated, maybe, but not rated. You gotta be kidding me. All right. You can go to our website at americasvoicenow.org. There's a PayPal link right there. If you're uncomfortable doing that, and you can sign up to be a monthly subscriber, or you can do it one time. But I got to tell you, folks, we're desperate and we're underwater. There are those of you out there who donate every month, and please don't misunderstand what I'm saying when I say this. You guys have been fabulous. And those of you who make a one-time donation, I'm certainly not deriding that. I'm just telling you that there's not enough of it, and I can't say it any other way. If you can't do that and you can mail a donation, then please do to P.O. Box. It's America's Voice Now, P.O. Box 1195, West Plains, Missouri 65775. That's America's Voice Now, P.O. Box 1195, West Plains, Missouri 65775. If you've got an alternative method for me here, that's great. If you're a business and you'd like to advertise with us, that's great. If you're a business and you'd like to donate a product that we can sell or auction off on our website or something, I'm okay with that too. I want to be as creative as you do with it. If you've got an old product that's laying around that's old inventory that you can't move, then please donate it to us and we'll put it up for sale and we'll sell it. And then we'll use the money towards covering the cost of this program. If you're an individual and you like this program, you listen to it consistently and you don't have any money, then hold a yard sale. I mean, it's sad that, we're down to holding yard sales and bake sales to try to keep free speech on the air, but it's the truth. And Harry Reid's doing everything he can to shut it down. He's literally got a committee meeting and hearing on June 3rd to amend the Constitution to limit political speech. To limit political speech. I mean, this is reminiscent of the Sedition Act. Now, he announced this on May 15th. You got to be kidding me. We've been trying for decades now to get constitutional amendments to limit people like Harry Reid from having this kind of power, number one. Number two, from being in office for 30 years. Like people like Harry Reid, among others. But it gets worse. We've tried to limit their ability to borrow money in our name and leave us liable for it. We can't do it. We have tried to do virtually everything that we have that we see wrong with our country through constitutional amendments. We can't get it done. We can't make any headway whatsoever. Why? Because the same people that have to vote for these things are the people that will be impacted by it. We've tried to get, constitutional amendments to shrink the federal government. We can't do it. Why? Because they would lose power. And so the obvious next question you have to ask yourself is, how is it that Harry Reid can announce on May 15th a hearing at the Senate Judiciary Committee to hold a hearing on June 3rd? Literally, 3 weeks, not even 2.5 weeks, to amend the U.S. Constitution to limit political speech. If it's adopted, it would make it the first time in the history of the United States of America that the Constitution was amended to rescind First and foremost, a right held by the people. Secondly, one of the basic aspects, one of the basic foundational first Bill of Rights aspects. Now, I got to tell you something, folks. The way he's phrased this is Congress shall have power to regulate the raising and spending of money and in-kind equivalents with respect to federal and state elections. What? First of all, it immediately violates the First Amendment. Secondly, it immediately violates the 10th Amendment. Because if Congress has ability to regulate state elections, then the 10th Amendment is completely eviscerated. You don't have one. It's gone. The amendment includes a provision that says the following. Nothing in this article shall be construed to grant Congress the power to abridge the freedom of the press. But what they're saying there is that if you're the New York Times, if you're the LA Times, the Chicago Tribune, if you're the Wall Street Journal, if you're Fox, CNN, Communist News Network, the whatever, then you can say whatever the government tells you to say. But if you are an organization like any of the organizations out there who are not press organizations, like the Tea Party, then you're silenced. You're shut down. Any organization that speaks out, Judicial Watch, shut down. Who's Judicial Watch? They're the ones that just broke the news that nobody in the mainstream media would about Benghazi. Hello? The Constitution's only been amended 27 times in history. The first one, the First Amendment was, or the first time it was amended, was done with the Bill of Rights. And that's because the states all came forward and said, without this in there, we're not signing onto the Constitution. We're not going to ratify it. Because what you're doing is you're creating a document that will rule the day but leaves us out as citizens. And we have these basic rights that government cannot make any changes to. Between 1865 and 1870, 3 more occurred. One was forbidding slavery and racial discrimination, but was done in such a way that the loopholes were there to actually, and if you listen and read what the 14th Amendment and the 13th Amendment really say, they don't have anything to do really with slavery and releasing slaves. What they have to do is with enslaving everyone. Now, in 2011, Harry Reid voted against a proposed constitutional amendment that was put out by Orrin Hatch and Mike Lee from Utah. And that particular amendment would have required the federal government to balance the budget. So Harry Reid voted against it. He also voted against one that would have protected marriage as a union of one man and one woman. And I don't care where you stand on the issues of gay marriage, and I don't care who sleeps with who. Frankly, it's nobody's business, and it's not the government's job either. You see, for the record, by the way, let me just throw something out there, and I know I'll get some hate mail about this, and I don't really care. Here's the deal on marriage. The fact that you have to go to government to get a permit to get married ought to tell you that everything there is to know. Marriages should only be recognized and honored between the two individuals associated with it and their God. That's it. Everything else is a whitewash. The idea of, well, there's tax implications. Great. Reform the tax system so that everybody pays and nobody's got a loophole. Then your problem with marriage goes away. And who's sleeping with whom doesn't really enter into your life at all because it doesn't cost you anything. If people want to do what they want to do, they're going to do it anyway. And who are you to stand in the way and say someone can or cannot? The problem is that marriage has become a government institution. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that's the crime. You see, what you and your husband and your wife or your partner do is between you two and God. End of argument. End of argument. It has nothing to do with government. It has nothing to do with a tax break. It has nothing to do with who you can hand your crap over to when you die. None of that matters. That's just government's way of manipulating you to keep you in the throne room where they have control. You see, the last time they tried to do something that would limit your ability or your rights, your personal individual rights, was when they passed and ratified prohibition. And it didn't take very long before it became apparent that what it really did is changed the paradigm of everything in the United States. It brought crime lords and birthed them into a whole new level of impact across the country. It made crime pay. It made crime pay. And it taught individuals how to become criminals and to make a ton of money at it and to be ruthless and to be murderous and to not be concerned about the collateral damage of their crimes in terms of, who they had to kill to, innocent civilians standing in the way, no problem at all. And it didn't last very long. They repealed it, 20 years later? Not even. 13, 14 years. The truth is, government is not the arbiter of your rights. Hello? You see, they're all into it, too. Schumer has come out and saying he's going to, that this is going to come up for a vote later this year. I mean, who do these people think they are? That they're going to say, under what terms and conditions, and recognize something. Listen to the vagueness of the language. Congress shall have power to regulate the raising and spending of money and in-kind equivalents with respect to the federal elections and state elections. All right, so let me just help you grasp what this really means. First of all, once Congress has power to regulate the raising and spending of money, and note that they use the term in-kind equivalents. What does that mean? That means if you play an ad on a radio station, and you don't charge, that's an in-kind equivalent. So suddenly, Congress will have this massive amount of ability. You make a donation of a product, right? You're a business, and you say, well, I got these widgets that sell for $1,000, and I don't have a lot of liquid cash, but I got 10,000 of these in a warehouse, so I'm going to donate one of these, and I'm going to allow a candidate to raffle one of these off at a fundraiser or something. That's an in-kind equivalent. Buying an airplane ticket to help a candidate get from one place to another so that they can do a stump-raising speech. Donating a venue where they can come and do a speech and saying, well, we're not going to charge you. That's an in-kind equivalent. Making a telephone call on behalf of a candidate that you like as a volunteer. That's a donation suddenly. Get it? And once Congress has that kind of power, let me tell you something. If you think the election process is screwed now, wait until Congress gets that kind of authority. And it doesn't specify or stipulate what the rules will be. They get to make them later. Hey, didn't we just learn about that with this thing called, that's right, the ACA, the Patient and Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. We learned what happens when we just pass these blanket things and let Congress write the rules later, don't we? Tell me that you think any rules that are going to come out of that constitutional amendment are going to actually be to your benefit. I don't care how creative a thinker you are. There's nothing you can come up with that will pass the logic, the smell test of logic and reason, that warrants this. There's nothing. You can give me 1,000 reasons, and I will tear apart each one of them and tear it down to the ground in a matter of seconds, using pure logic and reason and just examples from history. So, if you think you've got one, send me an email to mike@americasvoicenow.org. I'll take a look at it, and I guarantee you I'll tear it up. In fact, I'll tear it up on air. You can send it to me. I won't even read who it's from, and we'll just do it anonymously. You give me one thing that will be good about this kind of a constitutional amendment. You tell me what good will come from this, from you as an individual, or for you as an individual, and I will tear it apart on air. I'll leave your name out of it so that you won't be embarrassed, because I guarantee you there's no way that I cannot do it. And I don't want you to be embarrassed. See, the truth is this. First of all, if Congress has the power to regulate the raising and spending of money and in-kind equivalents with respect to federal elections and state elections, and I want you to understand the term state elections, that means that suddenly your state elections are under federal domination. They're not any longer under local and state rules. The rules are now set by the feds for your state elections. Find me any justification in the 10th Amendment that allows that to happen. This is a new constitutional amendment that will violate one that exists already, not to mention another one that exists already, the 1st and the 10th. Didn't we just do that with Obamacare? Yeah, we passed a piece of legislation in 2010 that violates your First Amendment right. It violates your Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable search and seizure, because you're required by law to submit all of your personal information, which you're then told after the fact can be used against you. And then it violates the Fifth Amendment, which says that, and very clearly states that you cannot be coerced into incriminating yourself. Hello. So we passed a law in 2010 that violates constitutional rights, which have been outlined and delineated for us in writing for 200 and some odd years, and actually existed long before the Constitution. These were just delineated by a written piece of paper. They were the first time put in writing. But those rights existed long before anyone knew how to write. They existed before cuneiform. They existed before hieroglyphics. They existed when men were running around going, ugh. Do you know why? Because they're given to you by nature, and they're given to you by God. And there's nothing that man can do unless you're willing to waive them. Now, you can waive them if you choose, but that's on you. The truth is, there's nothing that they can do that forces you to waive them. If they try to do that by force, that's called coercion. That's called extortion. And utilizing a gun held by government to commit extortion is no different than a gun in the hands of a criminal who says, open up the safe or I'm going to blow your brains out. It's the same thing. Does it matter whose hand is holding the gun? Does it matter whose mouth is exposing the threat? No, of course it doesn't. Why should you believe that it is otherwise? Do you think the federal government is less, and your state governments, I might add, and by the way, I don't want to leave anything out of the state here. Do you think that the state and the federal government are any less criminal than any of the crime families that run, organized crime in the nation? Think about that for a moment. Of course they are not. They are the same. They are the same. Government is organized crime at this point. It's not what it was meant to be. It's not what it was intended to be. It's not what we gave it limited power to be. But it has become exactly that. And a constitutional amendment, first of all, anything proposed by Harry Reid is subject to immediate and in-depth scrutiny. Period. End of argument. Harry Reid is the most partisan, two-bit, traitorous human being piece of human excrement in Congress. Exceeded only perhaps by Feinstein and the likes of people like Schumer, John McCain, John Boehner. You see, these people, I don't want to leave out Lindsey Graham. Sorry. I don't want to insult human bowel movements by attributing characteristics to them of these people, but I don't really have a choice because I can't think of anything else that is close. What Americans should be saying is if you try to violate and pass a constitutional amendment on the First Amendment right of free speech of every American to see and support as they choose, you want to limit something? Limit the corporations' access to be able to pump this money into these elections. You want to limit something? What we should be saying is, here's what we're going to do. We're going to call a national strike, and we're going to freeze you out. We're going to shut you down, and we're going to starve you to death. We're going to starve the federal government to death by a national strike that just says, that's it. We're not paying our mortgages. We're not paying our car payments. We're not going to pay our mortgage or our credit card bills. We're not going to pay our cable companies. We're not going to pay our gas bill. We're not going to pay our electric bill. We're not going to go to work. We're shutting down. That's it. I wrote this up in an article on America's Voice Now. I can't even tell you how long ago. And it's gotten, I don't know, thousands and thousands and thousands of views and reprints and cross-postings and what have you. It's called The Plan to Take Back America. Place all state and federal capitals under civil, disobedient siege. And I mean siege. I mean siege. I mean lock it down, shut it down, starve the beast, and then demand that they be labeled for what they are. Dishonorably discharged, strip them of their citizenship, and exile them from the nation. You want a solution to America's problems? That's how it's going to start, ladies and gentlemen. Think our founders didn't think that way? Go back and read Tar and Feathering. Go look and see what our founders did to people who violated the rules of righteousness, who violated the rules and became traitors within their own nation. The time has come for us to make or break, and we can no longer sit around and ponder who's going to do something. The who is you. And the only way we're going to accomplish that, is to freeze it out. Shut down the money, shut down the taxes, shut down the spending, and starve the beast. It feeds on you. It feeds on your fear, it feeds on your apathy, but mostly it feeds on your money. And when you take that resource away, it's powerless. You've just stolen all the wind from its sails. Oh, I know there's those who are arguing. They'll just keep printing, and they will. But I got to ask you this. Would you rather that this thing come to its head with them setting all the rules? Or would you rather be a disruptor? Ask yourself that question, because it matters. If you can support us, please do so. You can send an email to me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. If you can, as I mentioned at the top of the segment, if you're a business and you can support us in some way by making a donation, a gift certificate available that we can auction off on the air or something along those lines, or sell at a discount back to our audience who can use it in your community or in your business, please do so, because we're way upside down, folks, and we really, really need the help. If you can make a donation directly, you can do so by going to our website at americasvoicenow.org. You can also use the PayPal thing, or you can mail it to us at America's Voice Now, P.O. Box 1195, West Plains, Missouri, 65775. Listen, find something that you're throwing your money away on today and donate it here instead, because we're way outside. We'll be right back.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm the host here, and we are we're joining in on our third segment this morning. The goal of AVN is to disrupt, to be a disruptor. I'm a monkey wrencher. What do I mean by that? Well, I like to expose the mainstream media and the Ministry of Propaganda for fooling you and give you the truth, or at least help you decipher it in and amongst the mountains of trash that are thrown at you, so that you're able to identify and see where the problems lie. And the whole idea is that you will have an opportunity to recognize treasonous abuse when it's given or offered to you, right? In other words, when the lies come fast and furious and hot and heavy, the object is for you to recognize when you're being manipulated and lied to. Now, perfect example. Dianne Feinstein came out the other day, and she said, the Republican Select Committee on Benghazi is a lynch mob. What? Actually, Dianne, the nation would be a whole lot better off if it was a lynch mob. So 50 million Americans need to all stand up and say, we're putting the federal and state capitals under siege. We're going on a national strike. We're going to stop working. We're going to stop paying our taxes, our mortgages, our credit cards. We're going to hit the banks and the treasuries where it hurts. And then we're going to mark every one of you, starting with you, Dianne, and your pal, Harry Reid, and Chuck Schumer, and Nancy Pelosi, and Boehner, and McCain, and Lindsey Graham, and all the rest of those traitors up there. We're going to mark all of you dishonorably discharged. And we're going to exile you, all of you, from the nation and strip you of your citizenship for acts of treason. Now, that's not a lynch mob in the means that you mean it to be. You want us to think that this is all about you. Well, I beg to differ, Dianne. This isn't about you. This is about us. And you've been betraying us for long enough. The truth is that these people have, for all intents and purposes, sold our nation out for their own personal power and finances. And I mean, listen, people, just look at it from this perspective. Since the 1960s, when we started the Great Society, the war on drugs, the war on this, the war on terror, the war on fat, the war on whatever, the war on spoons that make you fat, we've spent, what, $25 trillion? $25 trillion. I mean, we could have taken the members of Congress, and many of them have been around almost since the 60s, and we could have personally written them a check for $1 billion each and gotten off cheap. Instead, they've sold our entire nation down the road for, what, a few $1 million each that they can't even expose because, they got it in a brown paper bag. They're doing it right now. They're doing it by releasing these criminal illegals into our society, and immigration is now a national emergency. And even the New York Times, the number one apologist for immigration policy change and the number one apologist for the Obama administration, can't deny it. I'm going to just tell you a little secret here. What you don't know is that one of the biggest problems we have at immigration, especially on our southern border, is children who come into the system with no parental supervision. Their parents pay these coyotes to bring them over the border. And those that aren't raped, murdered, and killed on the way, or sold into slavery, or sold into sex trafficking, and who actually make it here, we can't even send them back because we don't know where to send them. We don't know how to send them. We don't have facilities to handle thousands upon thousands of children. Now, just for the record, the number of children migrants in 2011 was only 4,059 accompanied youths. Only 4,059. That number, in and of itself, is a crime against humanity. 4,059 unaccompanied children were picked off by border agents. That's the ones we caught. That's a crime. For everyone that came across the border, untold how many, and we'll never know, were raped, robbed, sold into slavery, sold into sex trafficking. Their parents manipulated and held hostage or charged while their children were held hostage. But worse yet, 4,059 was the number in 2011. That's when this administration began the Dreamer program talk. That's when they said, well, we're going to let anyone who's under the age of 18 who's here stay because it's not their fault. Well, last year, in 2013, that number went from 4,059 to 21,000. Because the word is spread. Get to America and you can stay. And desperate parents the world over are pumping up and doing whatever they can to pump the money forth to pay these people to get their kids across the border. And they're so desperate to leave their own disastrous country, which they don't have the balls to overthrow, that they're willing to risk their children in the hands of strangers who already operate, in such a way that it should immediately cause them fear for the safety of their child. How irresponsible. That's child abuse under the guise of trying to save your child. How ridiculous. But more important, the number went from 4,059 in 2011 to 21,000 in 2013. And guess what? This year they said, the numbers are going to go up even more because of the DREAM Act nonsense. So guess what? They said, we're expecting that number to go from 21,000 to 60,000. Well, we're in May and it's already 60,000. We're not even halfway through with the year and we've already broken their highest estimate. It's gotten so bad. It's gotten so bad. It's gotten so bad that they have declared an emergency. An emergency. The Department of Homeland Security declared a crisis this week and moved to set up an emergency shelter at an Air Force base in San Antonio. Department of Health and Human Services are opening a shelter that will house 1,000 minors at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. They don't know what to do with them all. They're pouring over the border. They don't know what to do with them all. They don't know where to send them. Half the time, their parents can't be found. These are kids coming from El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela. How do you find a parent? The youngest of these children was 3. 3. Meanwhile, we've allowed literally 36,000 criminals convicted of crimes to be released back into our society. And lest you say that, well, you know, you're trying to make a big deal out of nothing, I beg to differ with you. That is not the truth. The real truth is that the people who have been released are and we've got empirical proof from the last time that this was done. And I'm going to find it for you here because, well, you got to see the number. But, oh, here we go. All right. In 2011, we released 7,283, right? So that's, what, 1/5 of the ones we just released. And that group of 7,300, less than 7,300, went on to commit 16,000 new crimes, including 19 murders, 142 sex offenses, 1,420 drug crimes, 682 cases of burglary and theft, and 48 firearms charges. So don't tell me that this isn't an issue. Don't tell me that these are good people. You're a liar. You're a liar. You are a liar. I want you to tell that to the grieving mother or wife or child of one of the 19 people who were murdered when we did this only 3 years ago. Or the 142 victims of sexual abuse, rape. Tell them, in fact. Here, I want you to stand in front of a rape victim and say, the crime that was committed on you doesn't matter. Because these people have rights. We released 36,000 criminals into our society who have not paid the penalty for the crimes that they've actually committed, which included scores of murders and rapes and robberies and kidnappings and drug charges and assaults and beatings. And that's treason. 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 Jay Johnson, the new head of Homeland Security, guilty. Barack Hussein Obama, guilty. The head of ICE, guilty. The men who turned the key and let them out, guilty. They're trying, the left is desperate to find some kind of an opportunity to claim that they are that this is something different than what it is. In fact, one of them was just interviewed. These are apologists for, how do you defend the indefensible? That's like coming out and saying that there's some defense for a guy like Bundy. What was his name? What was that serial murderer who killed 30 or 40 women or something in Florida? What was his name? I can't think of it. That's like saying that there's that you're an apologist for Charles Manson. How do you say that? How do you defend the indefensible? How do you defend Jeffrey Dahmer? Well, he was hungry. Okay, but we're all hungry, but, we don't start eating each other. There's an immigration attorney, Gonzalez. Golly gee. Is that surprising? His name wasn't Smith. It's Gonzalez, of course. He claims that the controversy surrounding the Obama administration release is a publicity stunt. A publicity stunt? No, that statement is a publicity stunt. He's the liaison to the Executive Office for Immigration Review, he's passed, which administers the immigration court system and the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Now we begin to see the light. See, here's a guy who's got an axe to grind, and he's willing to betray and sell out the country he lives in, and the bar association that gave him his title of foreign esquire, by the way, which automatically disqualifies him as a citizen and should strip him of his and exile him from the nation, according to the original 13th Amendment. Go look it up. And he was asked about the scandal on Fox News with Judge Deneen. He told the audience, "I think all of you fell for the publicity stunt by Mr. Elliott and Brenda Elliott and Mr. Aaron Klein in their book Impeachable Offenses that came out a couple of weeks ago. They were denouncing the Obama administration for releasing all these people." And Judge Deneen pointed out to him, she said, "I'm not here to promote anybody's book. We're having a discussion that has nothing to do with that." But the truth of the matter is, it gets even worse, because what he was trying to do was point out that this came out of that book, and that's not where it came from at all. This was on the Center for Immigration Studies, which didn't come from some book. This came from the direct whistleblowing of ICE individuals and from an ICE report. This wasn't pulled out of some book and some figment of some dude's imagination. He went on and said, "Well, apparently you fell for it, because that's what this is. This is a publicity stunt. This group, the Center for Immigration Studies, we know what they are." Oh, so now you're going to try and throw some Southern Poverty Law Center and cast aspersions on them because they tell the truth? You see, in the book, Impeachable Offenses, they were actually talking about releases of criminal aliens that happened between 2009 and 2011. They weren't even talking about this last group of 36,000. You know why? Because the book was published before that news even hit the street. And it just goes to show you how traitors and statists and liars and thieves and cutthroats, for their own personal benefit, will rewrite history. In that book, they were documenting the 7,000 criminals released in those years who went on to commit 19 new murders, 142 sex crimes. So ask yourself the question. If 7,000 went on to commit 16,000 new crimes, how many will 36,000 commit, who are already guilty of 88,000 crimes in the first place, which they never served a sentence for? You've got Americans sitting in prisons who have been given draconian sentences for the most nonsensical crap, and you've got them releasing and cutting loose murderers, rapists, child rapers, molesters, kidnappers, robbery, assault, bank robbery. What are we flipping nuts? And you got a piece of human trash, human offal, human excrement named Reid Gonzalez. And he's trying to make apology for it. Trying to dissuade you from knowing the truth. Trying to point you to something else to make it sound like it's a scandal made of nothing. The issue that he's addressing is a scandal that should have been national news anyway. So he's pointing to a lesser scandal to try to say, well, see, it's all smoke and mirrors. No, let me tell you something. It's not all smoke and mirrors. I'm going to tell you why. Because 19 people are dead as a result of it. And 142 women have been raped, or children have been raped. as a result of just 7,000 of them being cut loose years ago. If, I've heard the phrase, if it just saves one child, if it just saves one child, it's worth it to take away those guns from those crazy militia people and stuff. If it just saves one child, everyone's rights should be stripped. Really? So let's follow your advice. Let's take the non-existent rights these people don't actually have because they're not American citizens. Yes, they have human rights, but they don't have rights to come into this country and do as they please. Yes, they should be treated humanely. But after you've committed a crime and you've murdered someone, you've raped someone, you've robbed someone, you've stolen from someone, you've held someone at knife point, you've kidnapped their child and convinced the parents to give you money, you don't have any more rights. You voluntarily waive them. I'm tired of treason, America, and I'm tired of apologists for treason. I'm tired of apologists in the media. I'm tired of apologists in Congress. I'm tired of apologists in the administration. I'm tired of apologists at ICE, DHS, Border Patrol. I'm sick to death of it. And Americans are dying at their hands. They have blood on their hands. And I'm tired of hearing how I should feel bad for a rapist, a murderer. But I should ignore 42 vets who died at the hands of pencil-pushing bureaucrats. The disconnect is so outrageous. Folks, you're listening to America's Voice. This is the stuff that the mainstream you won't ever hear this. You'll never hear this you'll never hear that rant out of Rush Limbaugh. Why? Why? I don't dislike Rush. I just don't think he's willing to sit down and do the hard stuff. I don't think he's willing to take the risk. I don't think he's willing to take the chance. I don't think any of these people are willing to stand out there and say what really needs to be said. These are crimes of treason, crimes of murder, crimes of accessory, crimes of aiding and abetting the enemy. $400 million a $400 million contract, $40 million a year. I don't know. If somebody paid me $40 million a year, I wouldn't be afraid to say it. I'll tell you that. And if that was the price, I wouldn't take it. We'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to America's Voice now. When we come back, we're going to talk about guns and how they're trying to shut it down. Their goal is to enslave you, America. Wake up. Are you tired yet of treason, police state tactics, lies, history rewritten? I mean, the ink isn't even dry on the news, and they're trying to rewrite history. I mean, I get that history is always written by the victor, but this is ridiculous. They haven't even won the war and they're rewriting history. Alas, the Ministry of Propaganda is in full swing. You know, we're going to talk in this segment about gun sellers who are now going to be labeled high risk so that financial institutions can say, well, we're not going to allow you to bank here. We won't take Visa and MasterCard with you. You're not going to be able to deposit your money in the banks. You see, this is the backhanded treason of the Obama administration. They're trying to put gun retailers out of business with regulations and investigations that bypass Congress and choke off their line of credit, freeze their assets, and prohibit online sales. See, here's the deal, America. Every American should buy as many guns as they can. I don't care if you stockpile them. Because there'll be plenty of Americans that are going to need one, and it ain't going to be much longer. Since 2011, regulators have increased the scrutiny on banks' customers. The FDIC, now look, this is a government agency, and it is persecuting the Second Amendment rights of individuals and the sellers. That's treason. Hello? Since 2011, they've been urging banks to limit and classify gun retailers as high risk. So PayPal, eBay, they've already jumped on board with this. Can't sell a gun on eBay or PayPal. In fact, you can't even show a picture of a gun on eBay. Did you know that? At one point in time years ago, and I'm talking years ago now, I'm talking about 2005, I had put a holster up on a picture of a holster up on eBay, and I'd put a picture of a gun. This is when I was closing my store. I had a gun store. I had a picture of a gun in the holster so people could see how it would fit. And eBay removed the auction. They didn't just take the picture down. They shut the auction down and said, that's a violation of our user policy. You can't show a picture of a gun on eBay. What? Look at any television program, and you see guns all day long. PayPal won't allow anybody to pay for a gun through their system. And in fact, if they find you, they will shut your entire account down. Go buy a gun on Gun Broker or Auction Arms or any one of the gun auction sites out there and pay for it with PayPal. And see what happens. They will shut your account down and they'll shut their account down. Really? Whose flipping money is it? Now they want to list gun dealers as high risk. You know what else is high risk? Drug paraphernalia shops. Pornography stores. High risk of fraud. High risk of selling something that's illegal. The Justice Department, to make matters worse, has doubled down and started something called Operation Choke Point. Operation Choke Point. It's a credit card fraud probe that's focusing on banks and payment processors. And they're threatening banks to cut ties with online gun retailers if they don't want to be investigated. Even if they're completely legitimate. Even if they are a federally licensed firearms dealer and have a good credit history. And really? Is that any different than the IRS being used as a weapon of mass destruction against people for their political beliefs? Peter Weinstock, he's an attorney at Hunton and Williams. Here's what he has to say. This administration has very clearly told the banking industry which customers they feel represent reputational risk to do business with. Reputational risk is the quote. So financial institutions are reacting to this extraordinary enforcement arsenal by being ultra-conservative in who they do business with. Any companies that engage in any margin of risk as defined by this administration are being dropped. So let me just tell you what this would be if it was done if you were Visa or MasterCard and you were saying, well, we're going to, because of our, personal beliefs as the executive or the corporation's political or official stand on any one thing, we're going to take action against it. That would be called restraint of trade. But when the government does it, it's okay. Now, I've been telling you this for a couple of years, folks. Bank of America will not allow you to use your Bank of America credit card to buy a gun. Did you know that? It's your money. They're just a custodian of it. But they say to you, if you go out and buy a gun, can't do it with our bank. Top Gun Firearms has their local bank, Bank United North America, dumped their online business from its service because they sold guns. An email from the bank said, "This letter in no way reflects any derogatory reasons for such action on your behalf, but rather one of industry." In other words, the gun industry. "Unfortunately, your company's line of business is not commensurate with the industries we work with." That's restraint of trade. Black Rifle Armory in Henderson, Nevada. Its bank accounts were frozen this month as the bank tried to determine whether any of Black Rifle's online transactions were suspicious. Bank of America dropped a 12-year account of Macmillan Group, which is, they make gun stocks. Macmillan is very highly, and they make guns. Even though the company has a good credit history. Gun parts maker American Spirit Firearms in Scottsdale, Arizona, was similarly treated by Bank of America. Joe Sirachman, he's the owner of American Spirit Firearms. He says, "This seems to be happening with greater frequency and to many more dealers. At first, it was the bigger guys, gun part manufacturers or high-profile retailers. Now, the smaller mom and pop shops are being choked out." Excuse me. Now the mom and... where was I? This flipping computer. I don't know. I lost it because the computer glitched out on me. Anyway, the point is this. The fight is on. The war is on to shut down American gun manufacturers, gun purchases, gun dealers, and they're doing it because they can't get it through Congress. So they're just doing a backdoor method. Meanwhile, by the way, tens of billions of dollars worth of equipment is being funneled into your local police department. I posted an article this morning up there with a news article about how Indiana is actually driving MRAPs around in communities and towns and cities. People go up to them when they're getting gas in the MRAP and they say, "Are you going to take our guns?" "Your government has declared war upon you, America. I don't know what you're waiting for. Fight back." The simple truth is, they mean to enslave you, and they don't care how they do it. They don't care what methodology they use. They don't care what kind of collateral damage is associated with it. They don't care if you're put out of business, if the industry is destroyed. They don't care if they destroyed 10 other industries adjacent to it. Remember when they were trying to save General Motors, they said, well, if we let GM go under, we're going to lose all these other ancillary businesses that produce products and parts and gizmos and widgets for them. We can't do that. Well, how about all the companies that make gizmos and widgets for the gun industry? You don't give a darn about them. Because it's really not about what's good for America. That's the reason. It's all about what's good for the statists and the traitors who run your government. You can call it anything else you want, but it doesn't change it. Every step that government takes at this point is focused on one finalized goal. And that goal is your enslavement. Your enslavement mentally, your enslavement spiritually, your enslavement psychologically, and your enslavement financially, and ultimately your enslavement physically. Every move by government, every step, everything they do, there are no alternatives out there. There are no other ulterior motives. And at this point in America, you don't even have to look to see it. You don't have to work hard at it. It's obvious. All you got to do is open your eyes. It's clear. It's clear with every step. It's clear with every article. It's clear with every news brief. They're not even trying to hide it anymore. You know, back in 2012, I wrote the article for the plan to take back America by placing state and federal government capitals under civil disobedience siege and starving the beast by literally saying, that's it, we're not going to do anything. We're on strike. We're going to stop paying all of our bills. We're not going to pay any taxes. I know the naysayers are about there desperately seeking to figure out ways to shoot holes in it. Well, I can't stop paying taxes because I work for a corporation. They take my taxes out. You know what? Shut up. Go out there and make and refile your W-2 and mark yourself exempt. Well, I'll get in trouble with the IRS. Some patriot you are. I'm so scared. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. Let me tell you something. They're stripping you of everything. They're stripping you of everything that you physically own, everything that you own in your mind, everything you own in your heart and in your spirit. They're stripping your churches of authority and power by making them subservient to a 501c3 tax exemption facility. And your ministers and your church deacons are sitting there kissing and licking the boots of the monster they're supposed to be fighting. If all you're looking for is excuses on how you can sit there and shoot holes in an opportunity or in a fight, then you're just looking for an excuse to be a coward. That's what you're looking for. An excuse to be a coward. You're looking for an excuse to be a coward. There are no solutions here, ladies and gentlemen, that you're going to achieve by asking the master to cease the beatings. You're either going to take it upon yourself to put the master out of commission, not just push him off, because he's still holding the whip, and he's still got a gun strapped to his hip, but to put him out of commission so he cannot reach for the gun. He cannot swing the whip again. How do you accomplish that? Well, for starters, you go on a national strike and you say, that's it, we're done, we're finished. We're not doing it anymore. And we don't care if we have to sit here, because guess what? It won't be long before a fiscal collapse will strip you of everything and anything that you anticipate or think you actually own. Think they're not going to take your house away from you when you can't pay the taxes on it? Come on, how silly is that? Really? You got to be kidding me. The whole world is upside down. And you're sitting here trying to pretend that it really isn't going to go that way. Well, all you got to do is look over in Britain. The wealthiest people in Britain, the 1,000 richest men and women, their wealth just went up by 50%. in the last couple of years. The wealth since the crash of 2009 was $258 billion. Top 1,000 people, $258 billion. You know what it is now? 519 billion. There you go, folks. They've doubled their wealth since 2009, and most Americans have lost theirs. Most British have lost theirs. If you think that this isn't modeled, if you think that this isn't replicated in the United States and replicated in China and replicated in Asia and replicated in the European Union, you're a fool. The oligarchy is being built as we speak. The people who are the oligarchs, well, I mean, they're out there. They're loading up right now. I mean, how much money do you really need? I'm not saying that it's anybody's job to strip you of your wealth. I'm not saying that anyone has the right to limit how much you can make. I'm just saying that if the rest of the world is losing their shirt, but you on the flip side of the fence have become, have doubled your wealth. Going, I mean, if you're talking about 500, 1,000 wealthy people who have a combined or collected value of $520 billion. Do the math. You see, I've given you the statistics that the overall number of oligarchs globally is only a few million people. A few million. In the United States, you've got a couple thousand of the super rich, and these people are manipulating and twisting the game. And I'm talking about the people who, the founders of Google and AOL and all that crap, who are now taking their newfound nouveau riche status, and they're abusing and manipulating government to do things against you to improve their situation, to maintain their grip on power and authority. There's an article out this morning on Drudge Report about how the argument that is being made for the immigrant case, that we need immigrants to shore up the lack of STEM, which is science, technology, math, the lack of STEM candidates in the United States for jobs, and it's all a lie. It's all been a lie all along. The real goal here, and this article was telling. The real goal here is that they are abusing the guest worker program. And I'll tell you why. You'd think, well, it's just because they get to reduce wages for the high-tech workers, which is true. I mean, just for the record, since in the high-tech arena, just in case you didn't know this, wages have not gone up since Bill Clinton. Did you hear what I just said? Wages have not gone up since Bill Clinton was president. And worse yet, the real reason that they want these people is because it's high-tech slavery. That's cruel, you say. That's not true, blah, blah, blah. You want to make the argument. Okay, I'm going to tell you why it is. Because the corporations, the Googles, the AOLs, the Yahoos of the world, the Facebooks of the world, they hold these people's visa. And if they dare argue or cross them or strike for wages or make a fuss in any way, shape, or form, then the company can just say, well, then you're out of here. You got to go back to wherever you came from because we're going to pull your work visa. It's indentured servitude. Government and industry mean to enslave you. And since they can't enslave an American that way, and they can't have absolute control over you, because when you get sick of the job, if you don't like what you're doing, you just say, well, I'm just going to go find another one. But when you're an immigrant working on a visa, you can't do that. These H-1B visas, and by the way, that article puts out an excellent argument against this idea that we're short of American workers. The truth is we're not. We've got half the Americans who graduate with STEM degrees can't get a job. Half. It's all lies and propaganda. And every time you listen to it, you go deeper into the hole. We, as a nation, go deeper into the hole of enslavement. All right, we're gonna wrap for the day. Listen, I got to ask you, if there's any way that you can support America's Voice now, please be creative about it. We are upside down financially. I hate to talk about money, but sometimes I just can't help it. I don't have a choice. And if you're new to this program, please don't think that this is like a ringing thing that we do every day. I never ask for money, or almost never. But we're way upside down. If you can support us in any way as a business, be creative. You can donate a product to us. If you're a retailer and you own a shop and you've got some inventory laying around of an old camera that's still in the box and you'd like to sell it or donate it, and then we can sell it. No, we're not tax exempt, because if I was tax exempt, then they could say they could protect what I say or modify what I say. But we're upside down and we really need your help. And so if there's any way that you would be capable and or willing to help us, I would greatly appreciate that opportunity for you to donate to us. If you're an individual, I'm going to ask you to take a look at yourself and look at your finances and say, what is something that I spend money on every week or once a month that I don't really need? Maybe you're going to cut off your Ministry of Propaganda mainstream media TV channel. Whatever it is, something that you can creatively apply or assign to this program. Because we're one of the organizations, and I shouldn't say where. AVN is me. It's one guy. But I pay all the subsidies out of my pocket. I cover all of the shortfall every month. And I've been doing it for 3 years. And it's thousands and thousands of dollars. If you can help us, you can go to our website where you can make a donation one time, or you can put it in there where you can, and you can pick the number that you want. If you can only support us, for $5 or $10 a month, it matters. If you can support us for $100 or $500 or $1,000 a month, it matters. If you're, someone who's got a product that you've got sitting on a shelf that's brand new, you've never used, or if you're a business and you've got a product that you say, I've got a warehouse full of these things, I can afford to donate one. Auction it off and we'll and use the money for that instead. But I don't know how else to say it. We're upside down and we're in the hole big time. And I cover it every month, and I'm just out of resources to do that, folks. There's stuff we need just to make this show operate I can't afford to buy. All right, we're going to wrap the program for the day. I would be very appreciative if you would figure out some way that you can assist us, and you can get to our website at americasvoicenow.org. You can make a donation there through PayPal. The alternative, of course, to that is that you can mail it to us at America's Voice Now, P.O. Box 1195. That's America's Voice Now, P.O. Box 1195, West Plains, Missouri, 65775. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. God bless. Have a great day. And keep your chin up. See what you can do to help us. We'd greatly appreciate it.